All right, I got one for you. What is the difference between a bad product and a dangerous product?
Oh man, the bad product basically is anything that's just clunky and is not put together well, and dangerous product is obviously one that endangers the consumer. I'll give you an example. Famous one that comes to mind is NutriBullets.
Like the blender?
The blender, NutriBullets, and you guys probably can go Google this, but there was a few years ago we had a few cases in our office, and there was reports of these NutriBullets, and I'm talking about the individual cups that you kind of twist and put in.
And then you use it as the cup too.
And you use it as a cup to blend. I mean, these things were so powerful that you could basically make soup in it.
Right.
So you can put tomato soup in it. Basically, put tomatoes in it, let it blend. It would spin at a high speed. It would even heat up the tomato inside of it, and you would have hot soup at the end of it. They were either exploding because there was pressure under, it was building up pressure, or it would get dislodged. The mechanism was you push down and it would turn it, and the pressure would dislodge it, and these things would shoot out.
So they got burning soup on your face.
Well, there was one case I remember reading about in London or in England where it exploded, and the user ended up having a second degree burns on their face because the liquid was hot and hit them.
The damages are more because the victims were English.
Well, or less because they don't have as good as laws as we have here in America.
That's true.
Personal injury laws, that is. But we had a case where the NutriBullet actually shot out and hit our client in the chest, and obviously she got injured, and so we were pursuing that. But that would be an example of a dangerous product compared to just a bad product. Where, the product is bad and it falls apart and it's not as described and it just becomes useless, right?
Right.
That would be a bad product. Dangerous product is not only is it useless, or it may be useful, but it actually poses a danger to you. And you see this in different areas too.
Yeah, that could be like a lawnmower or a Ninja, or it could be a Tesla.
Absolutely. So there's arguably there are vehicles, for example, that pose a danger. We've had airbag cases. We've had rollovers where roof crushes. And then you've got Tesla cases with a lot of the models in Tesla, for example, don't have a mechanism to exit the vehicle manually without having to push button, especially in a scenario where the battery cuts out, right?
Which causes a fire.
Which potentially could cause a fire, or you just don't know how to get out of the vehicle, right? So some of the Tesla models, for example, there is a manual release in the front of the vehicle, and the manual release in the back of the vehicle, while it exists, it's extremely hidden and hard to find. So unless you've read the manual from front to back, which I think we all do, right? We read all 400 or 500 pages when we get it.
All the small print.
If you're sitting in, say, an older Tesla Model 3 or a Model Y in the back, or even a Model S, the logical place where you would think a manual release would be is somewhere on the side of the door. And a lot of those models is actually a pull rod, a metal pull rod that's hidden underneath their seat in the back seat. And you'd have to really know where it is and know what you're looking for. And then it's also a question of how you operate that thing. Most consumers don't know about it. Even the owners don't know about it because it's not in.
I didn't know about it.
Right. No, neither did I until it became an issue for us with different cases that we had to look at. But more importantly, what if you're riding in a rideshare and you're a passenger in the back and you get into a car accident and the power gets cut off to the vehicle and you're trying to exit that vehicle? That's an extremly dangerous condition, especially with electric vehicles where the possibility of a thermal runaway and a battery is there, and the battery could catch fire within possibly a few minutes. And how do you exit the vehicle?
And those windows are hard to break.
Well, yeah, the windows are hard to break unless you've got something to break it with. And I think more importantly, if you're waiting for paramedics to come and you need to get yourself out of a dangerous situation, and you just cannot find the manual exit or manual levers to remove yourself from the vehicle, it's extremely dangerous.
Wow. So should I like buy one of those things on infomercials late at night that just like,
hammers?
the little hammers? Like that's really scary because I'm imagining like being in a burning car or something, or the car goes off into like a river or something.
Right.
That's really, really scary.
It is, and I think I think with the advent in technology and all of these cool things that are coming out, where you can just push a button, the door will open itself, things like that. I think we have to be mindful of, okay, well, how do we handle emergencies, right? Tesla isn't the only vehicle that has the push buttons. I think it's and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I like the push button. I think my i7 had that. It was pretty cool, but it's also knowing how to get out of the vehicle when the electrical is completely cut off.
Yeah.
And the issue really is, where are they located, and is it easy located? So even, it's not enough to just have a manual exit for the vehicle. It's making sure it's accessible and the public is aware of it, right? And on that front, I still come across owners of Teslas and other vehicles that have the electric outlet of the vehicle, electric door openers with a push button, and they have no idea how to get out of the car. And it's not just from the inside. There's also an issue with the electric doors popping out on the vehicles, or the door handles, and being able to get into a car.
Yeah.
So, it's imagine you're in an accident and a paramedic is trying to get into the vehicle, and they need to get into the vehicle, and the door handles are gone, right?
So you need the fire department.
So you need to break those windows and get in. And I think we're seeing more and more regulation come down. I think in China, there is now regulations from everything from requiring a vehicle to electric vehicles, especially, to have a window of time before there's a thermal runway to the battery, to there needing to be manual ways to exit the vehicle from the interior and exterior, especially with those door handles.
Are you trying to tell me that the safety standards when it pertaining to this are more stringent in China than here?
They appear to be, from what I have read. Unfortunately, I think, unfortunately for us in the States, a lot of the safety standards are being written by the manufacturers, and the government is just kind of following suit on saying, hey, what do you think we should do here, rather than it being the other way around. Now I think that's changing a little bit, but it's an area of law that's extremely troublesome.
Yeah.
Where the keys to regulation are held with the people who are actually going to be potentially responsible for any violations of those regulations. So I'm hoping people will pay more attention to this. And as far as especially with vehicles, if you have one of these vehicles that has a push button to get out, you need to really educate yourself where the manual releases on those cars are. And I know a lot of people, even as far as recently, even though Tesla's been putting out cars for a while, and I don't want to single out Tesla because there's other vehicles there too, but it's the one that is most shocking is the placement of the manual release on the doors, where they're placed. They're part of lawsuits. We're involved in one right now, and clients, when they find out about it, are, I think, shocked that that's the case. And a lot of them will probably think twice before they purchase the vehicle if they know, hey, in an emergency I have to jump through these hoops to be able to get out of the back of the vehicle, or retrieve my child from the back of the vehicle, or anything of the sort.
One of the things that you said, I think that was interesting earlier, is in the manual, in small print somewhere, Tesla does tell you how to get out.
Right.
But clearly that's not an absolute defense, because that's your case, right? So, and they're not challenging on a motion to dismiss or anything like that. So, is that more of a jury question of whether that's reasonable or not?
I think it's a jury question, and I think, but the issue is that becomes an issue for the owner of the vehicle. But the dangerous product isn't just affect the owners of the vehicles, right? So that's one of the arguments that they raise. You should read the manual. That's obviously a hurdle that we always have to address. But the reality of it is, other manufacturers, for example, and the difference is we have to, again, when you're talking about Teslas, the purchase process and the delivery process on a Tesla is completely different than the purchase process and acceptance of a vehicle from a manufacturer, from other manufacturers, right? Most people purchase their Teslas online, and then it gets delivered to them, and they go pick it up at a delivery center, or it's delivered to their doors. My experience, and again, this is just my personal experience, is a lot of other manufacturers, when you go purchase their cars, you're at a dealership, once you finish it, usually the sales rep will sit down with you and talk to you about the features of the car, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen with Tesla too often. There's videos up on the internet that you can go look at, and they have different versions of their manuals available. And yeah, somewhere on a few hundred pages, there is a disclosure. There may be a disclosure where it is, it depends on which version of the manual you reread, where it tells you about how to get out of the vehicle in the rear.
Yeah.
But if you've inspected one of those vehicles, even when you read the manual, going and actually finding that rod in the back seat below your, behind the carpet where you need to find the slot and pull it, and then it's not intuitive either. So you've got the pull string, the metal pull string to release the back latch or the door. Do you pull it forward out in front of you? Do you pour it to the center? Do you pour it to the right? And I believe on the Tesla models, you actually have to pull it towards the center of the vehicle. So if you're sitting to the left, you pull it to the right. If you're sitting on the right, you pull it to the left. And someone may think, okay, I just have it pull it forward. It's not very intuitive unless you've actually read the manual, right? So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. You did. No, that's very interesting. But I think the takeaway here is, though, we've obviously been talking about cars, is that it could be anything.
Again, we can talk about toasters. We can talk about, tires, for example. What was it, the Firestone tires?
We had a heating blanket case.
Heating blanket case, right? And those, where and it's one of the bigger manufacturers would just catch on fire, and in that case, actually caused a fatality.
Yeah.
So the product's liability, again, from a dangerous product perspective, is something that really endangers the public. More so than a bad product, bad design product. And you've got those cases too, where it warrants a suit because what you're paying is not the
what's being represented.
But the dangerous product ones are the ones where I think the public really needs to be vigilant.
Yeah, so what's interesting is like the ones I kind of do more of, the labeling cases, is kind of the inverse of what you do.
Right.
Like yours may be disclosed somewhere in small print hidden, like, in the glove compartment or something. Whereas mine is where, you're buying a supplement, let's say, or a consumable or something. And the consumer's relying on what the label or the advertising about the product says. So on a very crude example, you could have a situation where somebody goes to the store and it says vitamin C, and in fact I'll give you a real life example. It was vitamin B12, right? So we did these cases where people, different manufacturers were selling liquid B12, and most of them sell 90 days worth of the liquid where you do put the drops on your tongue. And we had an expert, and he was just like, this is not possible. I'm like, what do you mean it's not possible? He goes, well, just chemically, when liquid B12 makes contact with oxygen, it evaporates. So the
shelf life issue, right?
Yeah, it's a shelf life issue. And so I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, so we bought the top 12 manufacturers at the time of liquid B12, and we sent them to labs. And even on the day that the seal was broken, the best performing liquid B12 only had about 70% of the advertised amount of liquid B12 per serving. But when you went to day 9 of 90, every single one had placebo. They had 0 B12.
So after the 9th day, that bottle is useless.
Yeah, and it's probably earlier than that.
It's just a feel-good liquid.
Exactly, it was a placebo, right?
Right.
And so that would have been that was a really good case. We brought all those cases, because it's not in a good in a good form. Like if you buy B12 in tablets, that's a much more secure and safe source of B12 because it doesn't evaporate, but the liquid form doesn't. So that'd be a really, really good example. But you can get, that's almost a unicorn case where you're literally not getting what, I'm there to buy B12 and it has no B12. Like that's like the far extreme. But then there's other ones where a product.
My favorite is the organic ones.
Yeah,
Where
okay.
they're charging you a premium on something that's labeled organic, and,
And
you find
it's
out
not.
it's not, or made
Natural.
in America cases,
Yeah.
where they're really, pulling at strings where people are willing to pay a higher dollar amount for it being organic or it being made in America. So you specifically want to support American manufacturing, and then you find out that, oh no, this actually doesn't fall under the criteria of made in America. Can you talk about that a little
Sure.
bit? Because I think sometimes people look at that and say, oh, they're suing for this because they said it's made in America and it's not. And
Yeah. So Made in USA, when you sue under Made in USA, the defendants always come out of the gate and they say, well, what difference does this make? I'm like, well, it makes a difference because you went to the trouble of putting it on the label. So it clearly has a financial benefit because so many manufacturers go to the trouble of putting Made in USA, and you sometimes see an American flag on the product because people, like you say, want to support American manufacturing and American jobs. And not to get political, but like under the current administration, that's one of the big things that's going on. Whether you like the administration or not,
Sure.
we know the majority of the nation voted for that. That was one of the things that that was the platform for the winning president, and so it matters to Americans.
And I want you, and I'm sure you will, but it's not just an issue of it matters to the public when they make a decision on purchasing a Made in the USA product, but it also matters to other manufacturers who are competing with you, correct?
Exactly right, because it puts the people that are doing it the right way, where they are importing ingredients from abroad, at a competitive disadvantage. And we live in a capitalistic society, so you want everyone to have the same rights and be competing for their customers on a fair competitive field, right? But if someone is advertising Made in USA and they are actually putting some ingredients from abroad, made in China or India or wherever, into that product, and they're advertising Made in USA, and then there's someone that's kind of very similarly situated, they're like, you know what, I can't really advertise that. They're doing it the right way.
Right.
They're at a competitive disadvantage because they're not putting the Made in USA and the flag on their product because they're trying to adhere to the law. The one that's breaking the law that's unfair competition.
Absolutely. So it's not only hurting consumers, it's also hurting other businesses who are doing it the right way.
Exactly.
By labeling the products the way it's supposed to be labeled.
Yeah. And what's interesting about labeling cases is that they all are not similarly situated as far as damages are concerned. So I gave you the B12 example. On that scenario, I was kind of looking for 100 cents on the dollar on the product. So if the product costs $20, I want $20 back because
Right.
the consumer was literally trying to buy B12 and they got none.
Right.
Now, Made in USA...
Especially for 90 days.
For sure.
Right.
So, on a Made in USA case, let's say it's a coconut drink, right? Let's assume the manufacturer did everything else right, or the person that's making this drink. It's just that coconuts are not from the USA. You can't grow commercially coconuts in the US.
Right.
And that's why that would probably run afoul of the Made in USA. The consumer is still getting a coconut drink.
Right.
Right? So they're getting the benefit of the product for
Right.
the most part, but they probably paid a premium because they wanted to buy that coconut drink over another coconut drink that did not say it's made in the USA.
Right.
So the damages is not 100 cents on the dollar, it's that premium difference.
That premium difference between what a non-made in USA drink would have they would have paid for, then
Yes.
Got it.
And then you've got like labeling cases that fall in between that, right? Where it's like substantiation claims. So for example, you buy an energy drink that says it also helps you enhance your memory.
Right.
Right? There's no literature, there's no scientific tests, there's no FDA approval on that claim on that drink,
So
right?
just false advertising.
Just false advertising, right? But it does give you energy, right? So you get some benefit, but there's also people were buying that energy drink because they thought it enhances your memory and they relied on that representation. So you get some benefit of that, but there is still a material misrepresentation.
So what's the balance between commercial puffery and an actual misrepresentation?
Really good question. And I think that's more of a discretionary call from a judge. But I think you can try and use your common sense. Like, let's say like you have a cereal where you have a tiger. It's like, these are great. Like, you know, the breakfast of champions, right? Like, do I think that tigers eat the cereal and like, you know, it's like you become a champion? No, that's puffery, right? But if you said, we guarantee you a gold medal if you like in 100 meters, if you drink this, that would be a misrepresentation, right?
And even that, I suppose, if it's made completely sarcastically and in jest, could be considered.
Could be, yeah, but it's much closer to the misrepresentation, yeah. So yeah, like I think that there's a lot of discretion from a judge on that one, on what is puffery, but that is a common defense to these things. And I mean, generally the claims we bring tend to be much more scientific based rather than, you know, it's all over the interpretation of a word. Though there is some statutory interpretation in what we do as well.
Makes sense. I think we're probably coming up on our time. Is there something else you want to discuss before we wrap it up for today?
No, I think like in a series of our podcasts moving forward, we're like covering a lot of areas on a very kind of fundamental and rudimentary level. In future episodes, we'll probably get more in the weeds on all of it.
Yeah, and I want to start bringing in some actual fun news cases where we can discuss.
That would be fun.
On some of these cases. But all right, awesome. We'll see you guys next time. And I think our disclaimer again. This is just for informational purposes. This is not legal advice. If you want more information on these legal topics and issues, you can visit our website.
Also subscribe, add.
Thanks.